Squire Trelawney and Dr. Livesey having asked me to write down the whole particulars about Treasure Island, from the beginning to the end, I go back to the time when my father kept the Admiral Benbow Inn and the brown old seaman first took up his lodging under our roof. He came plodding to the inn door, his sea chest brought behind him on a hand barrow. When my father appeared, the seaman called roughly for a glass of rum. "This is a pleasant city-aided grog shop," says he. "Much company, mate?" My father told him no, very little company. "Well, then, this is the berth for me. You can tell me when I've worked through that." And he threw down 3 or 4 gold pieces on the threshold. "And you might call me Captain." In time, he bid fair to ruin us, for he kept on staying month after month, so that all the money had long been exhausted, and still my father never plucked up the heart to insist on having more. I'm sure the annoyance and the terror he lived in hastened his early and unhappy death. The captain took me aside one day and promised me a silver 4penny on the first day of every month if I would only keep my weather eye open for a seafaring man with one leg. Then one bitter, cold January morning, the captain had set out down the beach, as was his habit. Well, the parlour door opened and a stranger stepped in, seeking the captain. "My mate Bill," he called him. When the captain came into view, the man backed along with me into the parlour so that we were both hidden by the open door. In strode the captain. "Bill," said the stranger. The captain spun round on his heel and fronted us. "Black dog. Black dog as ever was," returned the other. "Come for to see his old shipmate, Billy." After I'd fetched them a glass of rum, this black dog bade me go. For a long time I could hear nothing but a low gabbling. Then all of a sudden there was a tremendous explosion of oaths, a clash of steel followed, and then a cry of pain. The next instant I saw Black Dog in full flight, and the captain hotly pursuing, both with drawn cutlasses. Once out upon the road, Black Dog, in spite of a wound to his shoulder, disappeared over the edge of the hill in half a minute. The captain turned back into the house. And then in the parlour, he fell to the floor. It was a happy relief for my mother and me when the door opened and Dr. Livesey came in on his visit to my father. The captain had had a stroke. Dr. Livesey told him to break off short taking rum and cautioned him to rest. About noon, I stopped at the captain's door with some cooling drinks and medicines, but all he wanted was rum. "That doctor's a fool, I tell you, Jim. I'll give you a golden guinea for a noggin." He began to grow excited, and this alarmed me for my father, who needed quiet. "I want none of your money but what you owe my father," said I. And when I brought him the glass, he drank it greedily. Then he said, "Jim, you saw that seafaring man today, Black Dog. He's a bad one, but there's worse than put him on. Now it's my old sea chest they're after." I had to agree to fetch the magistrate if there was any sign of trouble. And our magistrate was none other than Dr. Livesey. "He'll lay him aboard of the Admiral Benbow, all Captain Flint's crew, all of them that's left. I was first mate, I was, and I'm the only one as knows the place. Old Flint gave it me when he lay a-dying. But you won't peach unless they get the black spot on me, or unless you see a seafaring man with one leg, Jim. Him above all." My poor father died quite suddenly that evening, which put all other matters on one side. In our natural distress, I had scarcely time to think of the captain, who had had more than his usual supply of rum, for he helped himself out of the bar. It was the day after the funeral that the blind man, Pew, arrived, tapping before him with a stick. When I told him that he was at the Admiral Benbow, Black Hill Cove, he asked for my hand to lead him in. I held it out, and he gripped it like a vice and pulled me close. "Now, boy, you take me into the captain or I'll break your arm." The poor captain raised his eyes, and at one look the rum went out of him and left him staring sober. "Now, Bill, sit where you are," said the beggar. "If I can't see, I can hear a finger stirring." And I saw him pass something from the hollow of his hand into the palm of the captain's. "And now that's done," said Pew. He suddenly left hold of me, and with incredible accuracy and nimbleness, he skipped out of the parlour and into the road, where I could hear his stick go tap, tap, tapping into the distance. The captain drew in his hand and looked sharply into the palm. 10 o'clock, he cried. 6 hours. We'll do 'em yet. And he sprang to his feet, reeled, stood swaying for a moment, and then fell face foremost to the floor. He had been struck dead by a thundering apoplexy. My mother and I saw ourselves at once in a difficult and dangerous position, so we set forth together to seek help in the neighbouring hamlet. The name of Captain Flint was well known to some there, and one of the men at least had seen a stranger on a little lug-rigged ship in what we called Kit's Hole. My mother wanted to return and claim our money from the sailor's sea chest, but not a man would go along with us. All they would do was to send one lad to ride forward to Dr. Livesey's in search of armed assistance. We returned swift and safe to the Admiral Benbow, and found the captain lying as we had left him. On the floor, close to his hand, there was a little round of paper, blackened on the one side. I found written on the other side this short message. You have till 10 tonight. It was yet only 6. We found the captain's key and hurried upstairs to the little room where his box had stood since the day of his arrival. At the bottom, underneath an old boat cloak, we found a bundle tied up in oilcloth and a canvas bag that gave forth, at a touch, the jingle of gold. I'll have my dues and not a farthing over, said my mother, and she began to count over the amount of the captain's score, seeking from the hoard only English coins. When we were about halfway through, a little low whistle sounded. It was a good way off upon the hill, but it brought my heart into my mouth. I'll take what I have, said my mother. And I'll take this. To square the count, said I, picking up the oilskin packet. We had not started a moment too soon. The sound of several footsteps running came already to our ears. We were just at the little bridge where we stumbled down the bank and a little way under the arch. We were scarcely in position ere our enemies began to arrive, 7 or 8 of them running hard. 3 men ran together, hand in hand, and I made out even through the mist that the middleman of this trio was the blind beggar. They were surprised to find the door open. "In! In! In!" shouted the blind man. There was a pause, then a cry of surprise. "Bill's dead!" But the blind man swore at them. "Search him, some of you shirking lubbers, and the rest of you aloft and get the chest!" Promptly afterwards, the window of the captain's room was thrown open, and a man leant out into the moonlight. "Pew!" he cried. "Someone's turned the chest out." "Is it there?" roared Pew. "The money's there." The blind man cursed the money. "Flint's fist, I mean." "We don't see it here nohow," returned the man. Then there followed a great to-do through all our old inn, until the men came out again and declared that we were nowhere to be found. And just then the whistle sounded again, but this time twice repeated. "There's Dirk again," said one of the buccaneers. "Twice. We'll have to budge, mates." Then came another sound from the top of the hill, the tramp of horses galloping. The buccaneers turned at once and ran, but Pew they deserted, tapping up and down the road in a frenzy, calling for his comrades. Just then 4 or 5 riders came in sight in the moonlight and swept at full gallop down the slope. Pew, utterly bewildered, made a dash right under the nearest of the coming horses. Down he went, and the 4 hooves trampled him and passed by. I leapt to my feet and hailed the riders. They were pulling up, horrified at the accident. They were revenue officers, whom the lad from the hamlet had met on his way to the doctor's. Some news of the lugger in Kit's Hole had already found its way to their supervisor, Mr. Dance. Pew was dead, stone dead. Mr. Dance rode on as fast as he could to Kit's Hole, but the lugger was already underway. I went back with him to the Admiral Benbow, and you cannot imagine a house in such a state of smash. I could see at once that we were ruined. Mr. Dance could make nothing of the scene, so I told him of the oilcloth bundle. "To tell you the truth, I should like to get it put in safety," said I. "I thought perhaps Dr. Livesey..." "Perfectly right," he interrupted. It suited him to go straight to the magistrate, and he offered to take me with him. Dr. Livesey had gone up to the hall to dine and passed the evening with Squire Trelawney, so we followed. When the supervisor had told his story and had been dismissed with many compliments, I gave the doctor the packet. "You have Heard of this Flint, I suppose, began Dr. Livesey. Heard of him, cried the squire. He was the bloodthirstiest buccaneer that sailed. Supposing that I have here in my pocket some clue to where Flint buried his treasure, said the doctor, will that treasure amount to much? It will amount to this, cried the squire. If we have the clue you talk about, I fit out a ship in Bristol dock and take you and Hawkins here along, and I'll have that treasure if I search a year. We opened the packet and found that it contained two things, a book and a sealed paper. The book, which had Mr. W. Bones on the first page, was seemingly the old buccaneer's account book. Next, the doctor opened the seals on the paper with great care, and there fell out a map of an island with every particular that would be needed to bring a ship to safe anchorage upon its shores. There were 3 crosses of red ink, and beside the southernmost, these words, bulk of treasure here. Over on the back, the same hand had written further information for finding the treasure. It was signed J.F. for James Flint. Livesey, said the squire, tomorrow I start for Bristol. In 3 weeks' time we'll have the best ship in England. Trelawney, said the doctor, I'll go with you, and I'll go bail for it, so will Jim. There's only one man I'm afraid of. He knew the squire well, a man of open temperament and a man who could not hold his tongue. These fellows who attacked the inn tonight are bound that they'll get the money, he said. We must none of us breathe a word of what we've found. While the squire went to Bristol and the doctor to London to find a physician to take charge of his practice, I lived at the Hall. I brooded by the hour together over the map, all the details of which I well remembered. But in all my fancies, nothing occurred to me so strange and tragic as our actual adventures.